Hey everybody, Min Chocolate Chip here with another video from Disease Heroes Battle Mode. So today, talking a little bit about the team makeups that you want to be using for boss battles and for breakers. As I did yesterday, talking about Mama Bots. Tomorrow will be about breakers. Thursday will be about the shop, some shop tips. And then finally gonna end up with like what do you do near the end of Invasion when the bots get too high and everything just gets kind of funky. So, what we're gonna, well, just do quick. So, you've seen I talked a little bit about the teams you're gonna be using for bots. For bots, really the main thing you're trying to do is get as much damage you can quickly, to probably just one hero, because it's easier to just invest in one and then just always be just doing the general to the rest. For me, I do two because I rely on Bo Peep and Stitch for damage on blue. And then everybody else is there just to keep them alive. So, you might have just seen it just a second ago. So Stan, he's currently ranked number 4, I think, right now, in our server. He's using a completely different team than what I was using. It's actually easier if I just show you here. So this is what Stan uses. He uses Mr. Incredible, Duke, Stitch, Animal, and Meg. Now, as I said with Mr. Incredible is not powered up. He's not boosted. He's not part of the blue team. But it doesn't stop you from being able to use him, especially with Meg, because he can stay alive a lot, especially if you have him very invested. Obviously, I don't, so that's why I don't use him. Duke is there mostly for healing. He does do a little bit of damage, and he's very good about clearing out the other bots. So this is kind of why I personally use Bo Peep. Just really fast. Bo Peep can actually do fantastic damage with her green skill, in addition to being able to do deflection spin and field training. And then Duke, he can do stun double, which does do the fantastic damage as well. And what you really you need to worry about the fantastic damage, because you have to clear out those fantastic damage grunts, the ones that can only be hit by fantastic damage. Those are the hardest ones to take out, especially with Stitch, because if you accidentally use his white skill, he will target one of the smaller characters in front, not the bot that you're actually fighting. So you really want these two to help you to take out everything else. Bo Peep I use mostly for bots, Stitch is obviously for bots, and then I mostly wait to use Duke's skill until the enemies have shown up, until it calls the next wave of enemies to clear them out, so that I can go back to using these two for the bot fights. Again, you want to be funneling damage. You only get 1 minute to do as much damage as you can, and that's all you care about, is just getting as much damage as possible. Now, what you'll see with the Breaker quests is a little bit different. So Breaker quests, one, they'll have preloaded turn meter, which makes them much harder, and two, they'll have the wards, which is 4 different ones, and you can see what they'll do. So this one increases reality by a lot, 300,000. This increases their skill power by 100%. This makes them immune to disables, and then this reduces your damage. So I think the way that it goes is there's 3 boosts to them and then 1 debuff to you that's automatically applied. So this makes you go slower. There's one that makes you attack slower. This is gaining less energy. This is increasing reality. This increases armor. There's also the ability for them to start with a shield. I think this decreases your attack speed, and then it either increases their basic damage or their skill power. So, what you're really up against with breakers is the fact that you not only have to beat out their fantastic damage, the ones that can only take fantastic damage. So you have to keep that in mind too. But you also have to realize that these are going to be able to use their skills right away. It makes them much harder. And now with red skills, they almost always come bloated with the red skills if that's available in your server. So it makes them very hard to beat. So for here, so I personally, I just don't have a lot of characters. I've said that at the beginning. My approach is mostly that I have like my main couple teams, my main like 25, 30 that I am investing in, and I don't really have any investments. I've stopped investing in all the others. So I don't really have a lot of very good debuff characters. But here's the thing. you can, the breaker, a really good breaker team you can use. This is a good solid base because you have a heal here, you have one of them you can keep invincible, and then Animal's going to make your team do more damage. So I float around Jafar sometimes because he can do Whirling Dervish, which right away, again, that's not useful against the Mama Bot, but is very helpful here. The other thing you can do is if you have this, if you have invested, you can use Kristoff and Elsa to do freezes because they can do debuffs. Now, keep in mind that if they have the immune to disables buff, then you can't do it. So the team here is a lot more flexible. You really don't need just the straight damage dealers. In fact, Stitch and Bo Peep aren't as useful. Bo Peep you can actually get away with because if you have her loaded every single time, you can do it. What you're really working with breakers again is the fact that they are going to get off right off the bat, and you are going to have to and you're also going to be fighting against wards. So the breaker teams that I tend to use are the ones that can either get damage right away, or they can get or I load up the energy so I can use their abilities right off the bat without having to wait at all. Because that could also really make it harder for you. If you can't use your skills right away. If you're waiting for skills, they might have already taken out your team. So some other tips with breaker fights is taking out the wards. Always, if you're stuck, the first ward to take out is the far left one, because this will either increase their skill power or increase their basic damage. So if you're stuck on a breaker fight, always take out the left one first, and then take out whichever one is hurting your team. If you're working with disables, obviously this is another one that you want to take out pretty quick. And then you want to kind of go through attacking damage characters do 75% less damage. It's very harmful for your team. And these breaker fight and these ward fights tend to be much easier because they tend to have, they don't have the loaded turn meter, they don't always have the red skills, and they tend to have more of the glitches or whatever these are called. Like the skeleton, they'll have the fantastic damage one as well. The skeleton can only take normal damage. These tend to be much easier fights overall, and so if you're stuck, take those out first. If you also are going to use any of the power-ups, I always use slow. Once I get to the point where I'm not where things start getting hairy, which is for me, I mean, some people that's at like 200, but for me it's around like 80. I'll always do slow because that'll also set up the team really well. If they have a lot of people, like right now they have 3 that have energy loaded, and then I'll always do Hex. So Hex is like the number one thing. Hex is useless in Mama Bot fights, so I always save it for these. And so even with this, I can just run in. Hex will make it so that they can't attack right away, and it wastes their energy. Hades is just going to be kind of annoying here, so I will lose Meg, and I'll probably lose a little bit more of the team. But I will be able to come out of this without winning, and that's really what matters. So some of these, like this is one where I would even have gone back and probably have gone and used one of the breakers, or taking out one of the wards, because Hades is very, very, very powerful. Very good character. So you're seeing, again, the team has loaded energy, has red skills, makes it hard for them to beat them. They'll have damage increase, they'll have reality, they're going to be immune to disables, and then my tanks are going to take 100% extra damage, which is bad for, Bo Peep. So that's kind of like the teams that you want to be using. Obviously, this is not my best team that I could be using. If you look at some of the other players, they have a lot more characters at their disposal. So again, a team that I've seen a bunch of others use is if you have Kristoff and Sven invested, then this is a great team because you're getting from freezes right away. Freeze you can use right away if you have it loaded up. You don't need Duke if you have Felix, because again, Meg's gonna keep Felix alive. He heals himself anyway. This is another really great way to use a team. Obviously, I haven't invested in these characters, so I can't use them effectively. So I'm kind of stuck with just what I have invested in at this point, which turns out to be the same as my breaker fights. I do have Duke for the heal, but that's just kind of like I hope you kind of use that to help you guide some of your team strategies. I hope to be able to to show off some other characters for the other teams as well, some team ups, and I'll be updating this regularly because this constantly changes. Like Kristoff and Sven was just recently released and has been slotted into a lot of people's breaker teams, and it wasn't there before. So hopefully I'll try to keep this as updated as I can, give you guys new videos as new characters come out and as they are more useful. With that, guys, expect more invasion videos tomorrow. Hope you guys are enjoying this. If you do have any questions, comments below, leave them. Discord me as always. It's linked. Guys, have fun. Enjoy this game mode. I'm enjoying it so far this week. With that, guys, I will see you in the next video.